Morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. We've got a number of, two of our new members here to talk about D.C. statehood and the bill that will be on the floor today on that, and then also about what's happening at the border again. The other set of issues that we've been discussing are the national security set of issues, which we're watching around the world. Our adversaries are testing this new administration. Whether you're talking about what's happening in Russia with the troop buildup on the border of Ukraine, the new CIA director, Bill Burns, said that this could well be a preparation for a limited military incursion. Whether you're talking about what's happening with the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, and the extent to which they're threatening Taiwan and continuing their malign influence and activities around the globe. What's happening in Iran, the announcement that they're now going to 60% enrichment, and their continued aggressive pursuit of nuclear weapons. Whether you're talking about North Korea and their continued nuclear buildup and potential resumption of testing, long-range testing. Around the globe, we're watching as our adversaries test us, as our adversaries threaten us. And so far, the Biden administration has been lacking, sadly, in its response. Our adversaries need to know that we have the will and the capacity to defend ourselves. That is the only way to deter the kind of threat that we see. When you combine the continued response by the Biden administration, which seems to be, if the Iranians threaten their nuclear buildup, then what we need to do is get back into the JCPOA. The JCPOA obviously gives the Iranians a pathway to a nuclear weapon. So they do not seem to recognize that it's in fact weakness, it's provocative. And we certainly the House Republicans are absolutely dedicated, committed to ensuring that we do our part in terms of oversight, in terms of highlighting the extent to which we know that military that is second to none and a strong relationship with our allies, those two things are very important for us to be able to defend ourselves. So we're going to continue to focus on and work on those issues. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to the gentlelady from South Carolina, one of our new members, to talk about D.C. statehood and our concerns about that bill. So I'm going to turn things over to Nancy Mace.
And I want to thank Congressman Cheney and Congressman Scalise for their leadership on these issues today. I never thought in the first 100 days that more damage could be done in 100 days by this administration than in 4 years. The Democrats have taken a very sharp left turn to a place I never thought possible this quick. After January, we heard a lot about unity, and it's been nothing but division. It's been 100% partisanship. And it's been a grab for more power. And I can tell you today, I don't believe that most of the American people want to see this power grab by any member of Congress on either side of the aisle. And so when you look at H.R. 1 right now, this is totally unconstitutional. The right of elections and how they are facilitated, how they are authorized to be completed, that's the power of the state, not the power of the federal government. If you look at Iowa 2, they tried to steal a legally certified election in Iowa with Congresswoman Marionette Miller Meeks. The American people voted. They voted legally, and it was legally certified. We're seeing it now with D.C. statehood. D.C. wouldn't even qualify as a singular congressional district, and here they are. They want the power and the authority of being an entire state in the United States. And they want that power. We're seeing it with packing the Supreme Court, going from 9 to 13, or attempt to do that. And they want to change the system. Like, I literally have a front row seat to the dismantling of our Constitution and our freedoms and seeing more power gained by the federal government and less for the American people. And that's why I'm here today to fight back against that. And I thank you for your time this morning. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks very much, Nancy. And now I'm going to yield to the gentleman from Indiana, Congresswoman Sparks, who has just recently returned from the border. Victoria.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. We spent about 15 hours in Judiciary Committee debating these two bills. And I wanted to share some thoughts with you as a member of the committee, but also as an immigrant to this country. I went to the border with both my Democrat colleagues and my Republican colleagues. And we have a real national security and humanitarian crisis at the border. And it is unfortunate for me to see that instead of having hearings and debates about solutions, maybe to improve our legal immigration, to improve legal infrastructure, the other side is playing politics. So I just wanted to briefly, and hopefully you can pass it along to Speaker Pelosi, because, you know, it seems like she's the only one who runs the show, 3 things. Number one thing, that she needs to realize that President Biden is in charge right now, not President Trump. So they need to start governing this country, not playing politics. Thing number 2, national security is number 1 core functions and protected our people from national threats. It's the most important thing that federal government has to do. And number 3, we actually are not a middle school class that complaining about recess. We're a serious institution which has to work on the serious issues and serious policies that people expect from us. What's happening right now, it's unacceptable, it's un-American, and we have to get to governing and not politicking and drama. And as a freshman, I'm very, very disappointed to see that. I'll do my part, and I hope you will do your part to put pressure on the other side that we can get to work. Thank you for having me.
And now I'd like to turn things over to our whip, Mr. Scalise.
Thank you, Liz. Thank my colleagues for their comments. And we still continue to have a crisis at America's southern border. So much so that President Biden himself finally the other day admitted that this is a crisis. And what was the White House's reaction? To try to distance themselves from the comments of the President of the United States. I've never seen a White House before try to say that statements by a President of the United States regarding a crisis doesn't constitute the White House position. It is a crisis. I'm glad that President Biden is finally acknowledging it. I wish Vice President Harris, who President Biden put in charge of this, would actually go down and see this right now. And the fact that she still hasn't, after weeks of being in charge of it, shows that they don't take this seriously. And in fact, they've self-created this crisis. We see the drug cartels taking hold of America's southern border. The drug cartels are making millions of dollars a day running our southern border, bringing people across illegally. And by the way, we had Dr. Fauci before the Select Subcommittee on Coronavirus last week. Dr. Fauci, under oath, testified that President Biden's violating the CDC guidelines that he set in regards to coronavirus. So we all know the social distancing guidelines. We all know that any restaurant in America that was operating above capacity would be shut down today if they were rated for 250-person capacity. Imagine if that restaurant had 4,000 people in it. Dr. Fauci testified that, yes, that restaurant would be shut down, but yet the Donna detention facilities opened operating under those kind of extreme conditions. And I asked Dr. Fauci if that violated CDC protocols, the way the Biden administration is running that Donna detention facility. And Dr. Fauci testified under oath that, yes, President Biden is violating CDC protocols as it relates to the way he's running the facility. We further went on and asked about the protocols that CDC has set up for American citizens that travel back from Mexico. So if an American citizen travels to Mexico and then returns, before they get on an airplane, an American citizen has to produce a negative COVID test. It's not a recommendation, it's a mandate that CDC has issued, so an American citizen couldn't even get on that airplane without a negative COVID test. And yet today, you will see maybe hundreds of people from the Donna detention facility put on airplanes without a COVID test. Some of them, our own Border Patrol agents acknowledge, are COVID positive, being put on an airplane without a negative COVID test. So once again, the Biden administration is making us live by one set of rules when they're not even following their own rules. And Dr. Fauci testified under oath that that is violating CDC protocols as well, the way that they are transporting people that came here illegally throughout the rest of the country. And the Biden administration still won't tell us how many people have been put on airplanes, where they're being sent, because clearly those states now should be concerned about the public health crisis that is being created by the Biden administration, violating their own CDC protocols, the way they are mismanaging this crisis at the border. This continues to be a problem. We're going to continue to raise awareness until this gets solved. The president could solve it today by restoring the Remain in Mexico policy, by reestablishing those relationships with the Northern Triangle countries that were in place during the Trump administration and working very well, working with our partners, with our neighbors on our southern border to help control our border. That is all gone right now because President Biden got rid of it by executive action. President Biden created this mess. He can fix this mess, and we call on him to do it today. And then finally, when you look at the additional push by Speaker Pelosi and her socialist allies in the House to push such a broad left socialist agenda, just the other day, one of our top leaders, Jerry Nadler, filed a bill to pack the United States Supreme Court. And while Speaker Pelosi initially said it wasn't going to come up right now, Jerry Nadler himself said that Speaker Pelosi will come around. And we couldn't even get the majority leader last week to commit that this bill will not come up. So no doubt they will continue to try to pack the Supreme Court if they can. They have opened America's southern borders, and the drug cartels have exploited it to the hilt. And then you look at some of the other policies that they're talking about bringing, adding D.C. statehood against the 28th Amendment of our Constitution, among other provisions, Article 1, Section 8 of our Constitution, just ramming through a socialist agenda, not working with Republicans on infrastructure. We want to improve America's infrastructure, and we want to do it in a responsible way. President Biden still has not met with Republican leadership to talk about how to do this. Instead, they're talking about a go-it-alone bill that would include tax hikes, major tax hikes that every American would pay. When they say that, oh, it only will be the rich, I guess if you pay utility bills, you're going to be one of those people because their charging stations that they want to spend billions of American tax dollars on would be paid for by monthly increases on families' household utility bills. So if a hardworking family out there wants to pay more in their utility bills, that's what the Biden infrastructure bill would do. That's not roads, bridges, ports, waterways, and broadband. Those are the things that we want to work on. That's not what the president is working on. He said when he ran for office that he would unify and work with everybody. He has yet to follow through on that promise. Day 100 is coming closely. All he's got to show for his 100 days in office is more lost jobs, killing the Keystone Pipeline, killing many energy jobs, pushing a very far left radical agenda, opening America's borders, trying to pack the Supreme Court. That's not what America elected President Biden to do. We're calling on him to follow up on the promises that he made during the campaign. With that, we'd be happy to take some questions.
Mr. If Congressman Waters' remarks were worthy of censure, why isn't Mo Brooks' comments worthy of censure when he said at the Stop the Steal rally, today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass? Why wasn't he censured?
Well, first of all, I've been very clear in speaking out against any kind of political rhetoric that incites violence. But if you look at Maxine Waters' comments, the judge in the trial just yesterday acknowledged that Maxine Waters' comments are so inflammatory that it could cause grounds for an appeal if that ruling goes the wrong way. And in fact, the judge went on to say that elected officials need to stop doing this and stay out of this. The fact that Speaker Pelosi covered for, she was trying to incite violence, and in fact, there is violence going on right now in Minnesota because of her actions. This isn't the first time she's made those kind of inflammatory comments. So you're going to see Leader McCarthy bring a censure resolution to the floor. I'd like to see Maxine Waters apologize for the inflammatory comments that she's made inciting violence. It's a powder keg down there. The last thing you want to do is make it worse, and especially to give grounds for an appeal. And look, we all watched what happened and saw Officer Chauvin cross the line. We should be all focused on making sure that justice is carried out. The last thing you'd want to do is give a grounds for an appeal that the judge himself acknowledged Maxine's comments.
Apologize also? I mean, there was a deadly riot that happened after he spoke at that rally.
Well, look, a lot of people have talked about the comments that other people have made and spoken out against it. Right now, I haven't heard any Democrats speaking out against what Maxine has said. And it's time for Democrats to speak out when they see it on both sides. They only want to speak out on one side of the aisle, not on both. And that hypocrisy, I think, is starting to shine through.
Do you agree with your colleagues, though, who say that the comments that Congresswoman Maxine Waters made is on par with the comments that former President Trump made prior to January 6th, that such the same level of violence?
No, in fact, President Trump used the words peaceful when he talked about the statements that he made. I haven't heard Maxine saying anything about peacefully protesting. She's talked about violence. She's talked about, I think the word is, get more confrontational in the streets if the verdict goes the wrong way. There's nothing peaceful about that. And again, the judge himself just yesterday said that that could cause the grounds for an appeal. Yeah.
Congressman, what kind of wording might Mr. McCarthy have in that censure proposal?
I don't know if the leaders finalized the language, but obviously a censure is the route that is going to be taken when it's filed.
Broad stroke, though, what kind of words, what kind of tone might it take?
You know, you'll have to ask him what the language is going to be, because he's finalizing that right now.
Mr. Scalise,
Yeah.
2 months ago, Ms. Cheney gave a speech in which she said Republicans must make clear that the GOP is not the party of white supremacy. Are you guys failing in that mission now that you have members proposing this America First caucus that promotes and espouses Anglo-Saxon political traditions and European architecture?
Well, first of all, I've seen comments that that's not being proposed, and you know that there is no caucus to do that. Look, what makes America great is our diversity, the richness of all the people that come from all around the world, legally coming to America to seek the American dream, like my great-grandparents saw it when they came from Italy. And it's a great, rich story. And people come, we're a great melting pot in America. And people of all faiths, of all beliefs, know that this is the place, this is the bastion of freedom where anybody can come. And if they seek that American dream, it's there for them today. And we see it. There are members of Congress today who came here from other countries themselves, not even second generation. We have many second and third generation wealthy people that have created wealth because they came to America without a dime, and they just had that belief in what makes America great. We all ought to promote that. Nobody should be promoting an agenda that excludes anyone else. And
So you will condemn that platform?
there is no caucus that they've formed, and if they ultimately do it, well, I think what Marjorie said is that a staffer wrote that she didn't, and she said she's not pursuing that. So there is no member of Congress who has said they're creating that kind of caucus. I would suggest that no caucus like that be filed by anybody, but I would also urge all of my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats, to be very vocal about the fact that what makes America great is our rich diversity and people who come here legally seeking the American dream, and we ought to create that opportunity for everybody, not just ourselves, but for future generations. And I am concerned that for future generations, it's at risk if they try to move a socialist agenda and turn our country into a more socialist nation, where they want to pack the Supreme Court to have a hostile takeover of the judiciary branch of government. They want to add states, even though D.C. used to be part of the state of Maryland, just like some of southern D.C. used to be part of the state of Virginia. That was initially given to the country to create an independent capital, which is what our country wanted. They didn't need the land, so that land went back to Virginia. But ultimately, if you look at where we are, what makes America great is our diversity and our ability for anybody to come here seeking freedom and go and work hard and achieve the American dream. If we move towards socialism, that dream will begin to disappear.
I wanted to ask about the GOP climate proposals that are put forward this week. I know there is a 3-day rollout from Leader McCarthy's office highlighting the energy and climate work of House Republicans. Can you just talk about that, please?
Yeah, you know, look, I'm a conservationist. I love hunting and fishing. In fact, the best place to fish in South Louisiana is right next to an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico. Everybody knows that. Your biggest game fish you can find, a beautiful blue Caribbean water. And so there's always been a symbiotic relationship in Louisiana and so many other states. In fact, it's drilling revenues that allow us to have the money to rebuild our coast in South Louisiana, which is a major national crisis where we're losing a football field of land every hour. We actually use drilling revenue to rebuild that land and protect people of South Louisiana from storms that come in from the Gulf of Mexico. So if you look at what we stand for, we've been very clear that what America's done through ingenuity and through American energy dominance has allowed us to reduce carbon emissions. Not Kyoto protocols or Paris Accords, which, by the way, when you look in Europe, there's not a single country in the European Union in compliance with the Paris Accord. It's wrecked economies. And what we don't want to see is wreck America's manufacturing economy, send those jobs to China and other countries that actually increase carbon emissions. You know, if you want to reduce carbon emissions, make more things in America, don't run jobs out of America. And for Earth Day, I'd give a challenge to the president's climate czar. Maybe if John Kerry just took a week and said he's not going to fly around in his private jet, he would save at least 40 times the amount of carbon emissions if he got on a private plane. You know, if he wanted to go to Iceland to receive some global warming award, they have flights from Boston to Iceland that are commercial instead of getting on his private jet while telling you not to use fossil fuels. So getting rid of the hypocrisy would be a good place for the left to start. We believe in American ingenuity. We believe in what's been great about this country at reducing emissions through technology and innovation in America, making things in America, creating jobs in America, exporting goods to help our friends around the world, all by reducing carbon emissions. So conservationism works. Radical leftist environmentalism destroys America's jobs and increases carbon emissions because those jobs go to foreign countries like China, who pollute at such a high level that you can't even walk around without getting respiratory illness. So with that, we appreciate y'all being out here. Thank y'all.